On behalf of all of St. Louis, I want to congratulate all the members of Donnybrook for 22 years of excellence. I particularly want to congratulate Martin Duggan for doing such an outstanding job in moderating many spirited debates on very relevant issues. Thank you, and I wish you many years of continued success.
I think if you went to the newspaper, you wouldn't think that I'm an odd dresser.
No, I have always dressed this way. I mean, when I was a reporter in Phoenix, and when I came here as a reporter, and it wasn't until I got on television on this show that people started thinking that, you know, what a bizarre way to dress. well, I mean, you know, as long as your clothes are clean is sort of the motto.
You know, people have bad hair days. I actually had some bad hair years.
Ray Hartman.
Ray Hartman.
Ray Hartman.
Mark Cusimano, the owner of Kimmel, said that he says I'm like an unemployed guy. You know, he says unemployed guys take the newspaper and they say, I don't like him. I don't like him. I don't like him. And that's what I do, he says, and then call it a living.
Wow, an anniversary for Donnybrook. That's so exciting. It's the only reason, actually, that I watch Channel 11. Channel 9. That's why I watch Channel 9, because of Donnybrook. I love that show. That's the one with the little loud guy, right, that used to own the newspaper. He's great. Nick, Bob, Ray. Funny. And boy, who's the old guy? Martin Duggan. Martin Duggan. I have to tell you, I saw a kinescope of Martin Duggan, his coverage of the World's Fair downtown. I wept openly.
There's never been any vulgarity, obscenity, anything we're ashamed of saying on this show in 21 years. And I'm proud of that.
We got a few minutes left.
And you just uphold those
We got a
standards,
few
Ray
minutes
Hartman.
left.
Our show is personality driven, and it's based on these people being pretty knowledgeable in their field. They all come from a media background.
I recall that's the way I brought up this subject. That's the way I posed the question.
But the other question, was it? I don't listen to your question. But the second after 19 years,
clear.
I'm not listening to the question.
We don't get any complaints about Bill McClellan. Bill, it appears to be universally lovable.
Bill McClellan, let's go on to a matter of utmost importance. I see you're wearing your cubby tie tonight. I don't know whether our viewers are getting a full look at it or not, but flash that.
It's very sickening, Bill, and this is offensive.
Bill McClellan, obviously we go to the same clothing stores and share fashion tips between the two of us from time to time. He doesn't write about me, so I'm done with him. And Wendy Weiss, I adore, absolutely.
Alvin Reed is probably the most refreshing, likable member of the Donnybrook band.
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying he might.
He's always ready with a smile, but be careful, because that smile can be dangerous. You know, it'll disarm you. You think, oh, here's a nice guy. And then he'll come up with an opinion that totally shatters the one you just offered.
And people raise their hand and say, like, I really don't want you to do that. And they say, so what? It's big business. Well, this is big business, but this time it's got a thumb on St. Louis's, neck.
You're right. And my God, I mean, not my God, but my personal God. In fact, I actually carry this with me. I just took this out of my wallet. I have a giant wallet, as you can imagine. Charles Brennan has really been my inspiration. This actually is not actual size. He's smaller than this.
I'm going to have to say, that'll do it from you tonight. If you were a pilot for TWA and Carl Icahn asked you to take a 10% pay cut to help bail out his misfortunes, would you do it?
Absolutely not. I agree with you. I don't trust Carl Icahn. But what's the alternative? Even if you don't trust him, if the alternative is he's going to shut down the airline, if he doesn't get concessions, he's going to sell it off, you got to do what the man's going to tell you to do.
I don't think you have. TWA controls about 82% of the air travel into St. Louis, okay?
Airline liquidates. These people all lose their jobs. You got 4,000 out at Chrysler. You realize what a blow that's going to be to this city?
It's not good for the city. I don't think it's good for the country. We need Boeing and McDonnell Douglas to compete with each other.
Exactly.
And by the way, when McDonnell Douglas is making record profits, Boeing is doing fine. I want to know what the point is, except to go ahead and lay off, 60, 70, 80,000 workers.
St. Louis's Boatman Bank, one of the most hallowed institutions in our city, is in the process of going under the control
of Nations Bank, headquartered in North Carolina.
The loss of Boatman's, I think it's going to mean it's going to be very hard for it to be a plus.
American Airlines have been given the go-ahead to acquire the assets of TWA.
Whether or not this is a legitimate offer with some financing behind it, we talked to Michael Boyd, who heads up the Boyd Aviation Group in Colorado this morning, and he said, this is not the way business is normally done.
I wouldn't bet on it, and I sure wouldn't bet the future of aviation in St. Louis on this.
The Bushes, as we know now, don't own that much stock, so it's not up to the fourth.
You shouldn't completely dismiss the notion that there will be some positives if at least something left if they do this. And again, I hope they don't.
Somebody down at Pestalozzi Street has caved in to InBev, right? Mm-hmm. And I referred to them as out-bevs last week. Now they're the no-bevs, it seems. Well, one of these days we just might know what we're talking about on some of these subjects. No Charles Brennan, you're our business guru. Although we could use Mark Vitter at a time like this.
Absolutely.
You agree?
Yeah. I totally agree.
And we've seen some nice clips of Mark tonight. We dearly miss him. He wasn't able to be with us tonight, although he certainly had been invited. But tell me this. You've been preaching the straight truth, I would say, about how frivolous some of the spending is and whatnot, ruinous, actually. And what's your best prediction for our economy? I'm talking about our viewing area.
I don't think it's too good for the area or for the country or the world right now. I mean, today was a huge day in world history. Ronald Reagan took over in 1981 with St. Louis and Murray Wiedenbaum as his chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors. And at that time, they were taking government off our backs and they were going to deregulate, and they did. And we're all free market capitalists with little government intervention. And today it was announced by the Treasury Secretary, or yesterday, that now the government is going to invest in banks using the Swedish model. So apparently the Reagan-Thatcher era is over, and now we are all Swedes in 2008. And, that's where we are right now. The free market economy is over.
You mean we'll have to drive Volvos?
We could do worse.
Some of us are already guilty of that.
It killed itself, didn't it?
Apparently.
The free market economy killed itself.
Yeah.
So it's time for something.
No, wait. I disagree with that. I disagree with that. I think it could have worked fine, except that all the warning signs and everything was out there and everybody just ignored it because they were making money hand over fist and people are losing their homes, but so what? Mine is fine. And it caught up with them. I mean, I think free, I think it works. Capitalism works just fine.
But
I think we blew it. I think you need some. I agree, but we just blew it in America.
But you know what? You say capitalism works fine, but there was a long time when a lot of St. Louisans and Americans were losing their jobs, which were going overseas, and we lost 2 million manufacturing jobs, but that wasn't a crisis. And in 2005, we were cutting Medicaid for poor people in St. Louis, taking away their batteries for wheelchairs and their cranes and their crutches, canes and the crutches, and that wasn't a crisis. But now that the banks are in trouble, that's a crisis. And now we need government intervention. It's funny. It depends whose ox is gored when we ask for the government bailout.
Does that surprise you? It's welfare if it's for anybody poor.
That's exactly right.
It's they're due, they're responsible, what do you say? They're due if they're rich. That's been the way always. That's the Republicans and the Democrats. Do you notice that nobody in this presidential race mentions either of those words? Talk about dirty words. McCain says the Democrats and those others, meaning himself, the Republicans. Mr. Obama never says, I believe in the democratic principles. And I'm a liberal Democrat, so what?
Well, because
okay, let's say I'm a socialist.
Dan.
That's fine, so am I. I always have been. And look what a nice person I am.
No, but what happened, if the rest of us get into, this is something I still have not heard answered. If the rest of us get into dire financial straits, we have to declare bankruptcy. So why aren't these companies being forced to declare bankruptcy?
I think I can tell you, I think the answer is, and I'm not going to defend the bailout, and I think it's interesting to me in this presidential election that neither of them, and particularly that McCain, did not position themselves against the bailout.
I think if McCain, I think it's pretty clear now that Obama is pretty likely to win this election and if he does, McCain's people are going to be asking themselves, why did, instead of suspending his campaign, which nobody bought, why didn't he simply oppose the bailout on conservative fiscal principles? Because the problem with it is, it's easy for us to sit here and say it's absurd and unfair and wrong, and it's all of those things. But if you're out there as a small business person trying to get a loan, or you're trying to get any kind of financing, the fact is, had they done nothing, and had justice been served, as we all think it should have been served kind of morally, the economy probably would have collapsed completely. And I think
we also get our 401k statements every month, the middle class voters. And if that tanks even more than it has been, and one party can lay it on the other, that if only they'd have gone along with the bailout.
But now you are right. George Will wrote a column suggesting, I think very rightly, that those 401k statements are like political mailings for Obama. I mean, every time people get those, it makes it harder for McCain to dig himself out.
But look at the insensitivity of the Americans. There were 1 million Americans losing their homes, and there was no bailout for them until those 401k statements were going down, and when Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns were going out of business. Until then, no one cared a rip about those Americans.
You are absolutely right, and that's why I say it's not. This thing is morally indefensible, but the problem is no one has an answer that the smartest people of both parties, they cannot figure out an answer that wouldn't have kept the entire
I sure don't have the answer. I thought 401k was a cereal. So let's go and see what Anne-Marie has some answers for us.
To all of you at Donnybrook, congratulations on providing the people of St. Louis with lively, unscripted debates for over 22 years. Political junkies know as they tune in, they're sure to get a good food fight between well-educated ideologues with dramatically opposed views. You might know it, not know it, but Ray Hartman once actually worked for me for governor. We've been lobbing tomatoes at each other ever since. I may not be able to hit him very much, but that's okay. That's what Martin was for.
Hard to say if Donnybrookers are more right than wrong. Thankfully, unlike newspaper columnists, these predictions are not in some sort of printed archive that are easily retrievable.
President Bush is going to be reelected, Dan Quayle is going to be the vice president, and he's going to win strongly.
New member here, Dick Ford, says that Bill Clinton is going to be the nominee.
I think we ought
to have an update on that. Bill McClellan, who's going to be the nominee?
Wishful thinking, but I'd like to see a Songus Kerry ticket.
Well, I can't imagine Al Gore, who I thought was a strong presidential possibility, running as vice president under Bill Clinton.
Under second banana to Bill Clinton makes sense to me.
I can't imagine that.
In fact, I will predict that President Bush will be elected, and none of this business is going to the House of Representatives.
There's a news
But what I predicted a couple of years ago that Bill Webster would be our next governor, and I'll stick to that prediction.
Would you rather see Hillary Clinton running for president than Bill Clinton? Yes or no? Absolutely. Bill McClellan.
Sure.
Sure, he said. And Ray Hartman.
Yes, but Jerry Brown much.
Jerry Brown
Bill Clinton is a bad candidate.
I think Bob Dole could still beat Bill Clinton.
With what I said, that John Edwards would ultimately win the Democratic nomination, I think it starts tonight.
And I think you're going to see that Mr. Dukakis will win in November.